Hello, everyone. Good evening, good morning. Uh, Welcome to another session of Paws webinar. Today, we have a very special guest. Unfortunately, Nisha couldn't join us. She is traveling. So, I'll be doing along with today's special guest, Aditya Nair, a very young, enthusiastic wildlife photographer. He specialized in wildlife photography. He is based in Kenya, one of my favorite place, and most of his photos that we are going to see today are from the paradise of wildlife, Masai Mara. So let's welcome Aditya to the show. Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are
Hi,
you?
Armis. Doing great, doing great. Super excited for this, and everyone that's joining, thank you so much.
We are equally
Um,
excited.
yeah, yeah, I'm getting that
Yes.
vibe. Thank you so much for having me on this platform because it's incredible what you guys do, and
Thank
everyone that's
you.
been here before me, incredible photographers. Just to be mentioned in the same conversation as them, oof, like I wouldn't have never imagined it. So yeah, super
So
excited.
yeah, we are also excited to hear how you started, how you came to wildlife photography, everything.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So do you want me to go ahead?
Yes, please.
Sweet. Okay. So wildlife photography. It's not a very interesting story, I'll tell you that, but it's been quite the journey ever since I started it. Growing up, photography, wildlife, it was interconnected for me. To be able to document like something so special and things that I love and be able to like show somebody the same thing in the same context that I saw it in was a very hard thing to do, which is why it probably put me off initially. But I thought I'd give it another try. And this was probably around in November, around July. I had just come back from Sydney, Australia. Just wanted a breather from like that city life. It was an exhausting couple of months. So I remember calling my mom and dad and telling them, listen, I need a break. Can I come back to Kenya? So when I came back to Kenya eventually, July 2019, something that was the top of my list was a safari, because the only time I'd been to Masai Mara prior to that was when I was 8 years old. And
Okay.
I just remember we had gone in one of those shared vans, you know, those white vans, those
Yes.
infamous white vans. Yeah, yeah, the ones that always get in your shot. Oh my God. Like, um, I remember I was there with my mom, dad, my grandparents, and this other family. And it was one of those experiences where I wasn't really sure what to expect from it because I'd been on safari before in Savo. Um, I don't think I'd seen a lion. I think I saw a lion from about like 2 kilometers away, and I just remember the guide going, "There's a lion 2 kilometers away from here," and uh, and I was just like, "Okay." Pulled out one of my small phones and then tried to take a picture, and all I could see was just like the sun and grass. So I was excited for Mara, and I think there was this one moment a large male lion approached the vehicle, and me just being 8 years old, I was tiny, seeing how massive they were and like how nonchalant their movement was, and we were in their land, in their environment and ecosystem. Uh, it was it quite literally changed my life. Like I realized that there's a special kind of beauty in places like this. But I was only 8 years old. Um, I still remember one of my favorite sightings wasn't even about animals. It was actually we were elevated on a hill, and I just remember seeing Masai Mara, the vast land, just this open area, and it was extremely cloudy. It was quite overcast weather, and I just remember the sun breaking through the clouds and just highlighting a herd of elephants. And
Okay.
I remember that was the first time in my entire life, just being 8 years old, where I just took a deep breath and I was just like, wow, you know, it was incredible. But then it's crazy. It took me more than 10 years to come back, because Masai Mara has always been viewed as that place that's too expensive, or you
Yeah.
go there once in a while, like you don't go there regularly.
Yeah.
So when I came back to Kenya in 2019, I made it a mission to do that. Went on a family holiday, celebrated my birthday in Mara, with my parents. And I just remember going into the trip, I was just like, well, do we have a camera? And my parents just like, no, no, we don't have a camera. So I was just like, well, then why are we going to Masai Mara? Um, and they're like, fair, fair point, fair point. So my dad actually borrowed one of those very entry level Canon DSLRs. Um, I think from a coworker, I believe.
Okay.
And I just remember I got the camera and I was like, okay, so I'll take it to Mara. Got to Mara. Actually, no, we went to Amboseli first for a couple of nights, and then we went to
Yeah.
Mara. But I got to Amboseli and I just remember pulling out the camera. I was like, okay, it's time. And I saw all these buttons, and I was just like, I've once in a while I've used DSLR, but I never really paid attention to it. So I was sitting there and I was confused. I was like, okay, so what does shutter speed do? All these were just numbers to me.
Yeah.
So that entire trip, I actually took photos on um, full auto, and I think I was so happy with the pictures, but I didn't realize how crappy they were until a little later. But at the time, that's what it was for me. It was just wildlife and my own interpretation and documentation of it. So I was inspired by several photographers, such as like Charles Young and Clostier, the late Clostier. Like his story is incredible. The Safari of My Life, that documentary. If you guys have not watched it, it's free on YouTube. Watch it. Trust me, you'll fall in love with wildlife. You'll fall in love with him. Um, Several inspirations in the context of wildlife and photography. I was just like, okay, why don't I actually maybe invest into some half decent gear and give it a shot? So in 2020, I came back to Kenya just during COVID, and this was in around February, and I thought like I'd be able to go to Masai Mara, but COVID hit, unfortunately.
Mhm.
So I only got to go in August. Went on a trip with my mom. My mom accompanied me, and that was the first time we'd ever been in a proper Land Cruiser, open Land Cruiser. It was just a totally different experience, and I had my camera, and I was learning how to take photos with the DSLR on full manual mode on the spot. And that was crazy because I would miss so many shots that I was just like so frustrated by. Um, but funnily enough, like one of the pictures I took on my first trip, maybe on my second day of properly learning how to use a DSLR camera, was the photo of the bloody cheetah that ended up getting highly commended in the Photographer of the Year 2021, in the Greatest Masai Mara, a finalist in that. So that just goes to show you that like sometimes it's not even about the photographer or the gear or like the experience. It's literally what wildlife just gives to you.
Yeah.
So that was how I integrated myself in this whole scene, and then from there onwards, just wanted to share pictures on Instagram to my friends, not spam them on my personal account, and I don't know what happened. It just took off from there. So it's been an incredible journey. It's only been just slightly over a year, but I already feel like it's I've been doing this my entire life. So there's a lot of growth, incredible
That's
amount of growth
great.
to be made. Yeah. So I also just want to quickly mention that like even though I do with wildlife photography, have this added touch of surrealism, which is through editing in Lightroom primarily. So I try to add some atmosphere to the image. I play around with colors, light and shadow. I'll go through that like in some of the pictures that we have to
Okay.
present. Um, I'll start with maybe this initial image right here.
Yeah.
So the reason why I chose this to be the first image that I wanted to speak about really quick is because it's the most accurate representation of Mara in my head. You know, that golden light. the long, tall grass, the savannah,
Yeah.
and a gorgeous animal in a lion. And I remember the lion was walking away, and I'm somebody that usually like just prefers animals walking towards us. So you get that front shot, you get the details of the face. Um, but this lion was walking away, but the soft touch of light was so incredible. I just remember I told my guide John, amazing person by the way, to just stop and let's just watch this. I quickly just snapped a shot. I don't even know the camera settings I used. I don't think it mattered because of how beautiful the light was. Um, and yeah, this is the image that lives in my head when I think about Mara. So yeah. Quickly go to this one. This is also one of my favorite images personally. I took this on a trip last year in August, and this is one of the Tanabora males before they split, or not split, but before they became Inebora, which is the four brothers. The Tanabora, I'm sure a lot of you know the story about them. This was this is like the five cheetah brothers that like the five cheetah male cheetahs that hunt on almost every day or every 2 days, and they take down the largest prey because obviously wildebeest, zebra, topi, they're too big for cheetahs to take down, but there are five of them and they're so good at it that they do, and they're breaking like the stereotype about cheetahs. And it's crazy to think because like I feel like reserves and places like Masai Mara, they're just a representation of the past. Like a part of the world that's been frozen in time. Um, because it's like if we had the ability to go back to like the Jurassic era and back to the Jurassic era and then freeze time so that we could go on safaris with like T-Rexes and uh, raptors and stuff, like I feel like we would do it in a second, like, right? Like if we wanted that, like I'm pretty sure the entire world wants that. So this is what Masai Mara is, and this is what reserves in Africa do. They freeze time, but still, even while it's frozen in time, you can see the evolution of cheetahs. We have this whole thing about how cheetah population in Mara is actually decreasing, supposedly. Don't fact check me on that. But it's interesting to see how the ones that are there are adapting and moving with time in a very controlled environment.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is they were hunting a wildebeest, and I mean it's just the pose. It's just crack that high shutter speed all the way to max, whatever you can, whatever you're most comfortable with, and just keep clicking. And that's how you get these shots. Honestly, focus too. That's the hard part. So I'm just gonna get into the subject of animals and like the wildlife that we have, because I feel like photography for a lot of people is about the environment, and they say that it tells a story, but I feel like personally speaking that it's sometimes the subject, the animal itself story that already exists, and what they're living can be told by just portraits, honestly. So my favorite example is these two images of a very famous leopard called Lorien, who unfortunately passed away last month. I created a special bond with her because um, even though like she may have not at the time been my favorite leopard to photograph, she was always there, and she always offered something or the other. So the left portrait, like I told you, I love those shots of them heading straight on. Um, it's play on light and shadow, which is what I did with the editing. On the right is actually one of my favorite pictures of her. I actually have that framed up on my wall. Um, Quite an interesting story about these two images was that we had been on this trip for about 4 nights, and we hadn't seen a single leopard, and that's so unlike Mara for me. So on the morning of my flight, we had about 30 minutes, and Um, she showed up, and John and I were discussing our plan here because he kept on telling me we're gonna miss the flight if we don't leave in the next 5 minutes. But I was just like, how? But she's doing everything I'm asking her to do. She's giving me all the opportunity in the world to take the best photographs. So I told him, like, listen, if I miss my flight, I miss my flight. What's wrong with another day in Mara? So we took these images, and when I looked at them after, I was just like, holy crap! Like, this is yeah, it's exactly what I wanted. It's the look, it's the intensity in the eyes, it's the glance, and um, I personally think it's the fact that when the eyes are focused on the camera on you, it's almost as if they're aware of your presence,
Yeah.
and that feeling is unmatched. That feeling is unmatched. When wildlife looks
True.
straight at you in the eye, crazy. This is Luluka, which is Lorian's cub, actually, now fully grown. Um, I remember both these images. I was actually with a curious ape, Andrew, on a trip last year, end of last year in 2020, and we stayed at this sighting for about 9 hours in the hot sun. Right, this is November. This is the end of November. It's just summer was kicking in, and I have some videos of it on my page where, like, we're literally just on the flow bed of the car and lying down and just waiting for Luluka to come back down. And every single time she would do the three yawns that leopards do, and she would move around the tree. That's what she was doing in the image on the right. Um, every single time that happened, like, we'd be like, okay, she's coming down, she's coming down. She did that about 12 to 15 times, where she woke up and just adjusted her position. And every single time we were so frustrated because we were so obsessed with the shot of her coming down. But from my experience, like, any shot of a leopard is chef's kiss. But eventually, you can see on the image on the left where she's coming down. It was a treat. It was an absolute treat.
Yeah.
We felt rewarded for our patience. But this is what I do with the editing. On the left over here, just playing with light and just bringing the focus to the animal, while maintaining the textures and the colors, and really bringing out the subject. Because what's better than the subject, right? Like, the environment
Yeah.
is great, but, like, prioritize that subject. Um, moving on, this is Jalime. Jalime is the cub of Luluka, so Lorian's granddaughter. I believe she's female. We saw on the trip towards the end of last year. Emerald eyes, so playful. All three of them share this characteristic of, like doing whatever they want, not shy at all. I'm sure some of you have heard the stories of how she comes, like, literally right next to the car and is not scared
Yeah.
of anything. So this is an example of that. Even though I was on the floor of the bed with the low angle, she was walking towards us, and she came so close that I had to, like, raise my lens up like this at 200 to 500 mm, and just hope to God it's in focus, and it happened to be in focus. So thankfully,
She made a lot of
I
people
need I
in
need to
trouble.
see. Oh, too many people in trouble. She's a troublemaker. Like, it's crazy. Like, but that's the best part, right? Like, she's
Yeah.
still there, she's still doing it, and life moves on, and still get to see more of her. That's the most important thing. Um, Another story is of Imani, the cheetah, famous cheetah mom, because obviously she had two litters in the space of maybe a year, and she lost all six of her cubs, four from the first, two from the second one. On the left here, you can see, like, this was what she was doing in this image was, obviously they were traveling during the day, in the midday in that hot sun, and there were no trees. So what she would do is she would climb on top of an anthill or termite hill, whatever it is, and she would provide cover for her cubs. And they would do this maybe every 50 to 100 meters. Um, it's like, come on, like what a great mother. Like, I know there's a lot of like, arguments and debates of whether she's a good mother because she's had to, like, defend cubs, and she's failed at it on several occasions. But I think the stuff that she had to go through with, like, the lions killing the cubs, predators just wanting to kill off competition, like, the fact that she's still there and alive, and then she's going to have more cubs. That's a beautiful story. The portrait of her on the right was just before the shot on the left, and I think it perfectly um, it shows her character. I feel like it's the eyes, the intensity of her eyes. It's, yeah, I love her. Um, This is from the same exact sighting. This again at the end of 2020 when I was with Andrew. I named this photo "May We Meet Again" because obviously I posted this after we found out the news. Um, I remember it's kittens, like these cheetah pups, they're so playful, so just sitting there and watching them is one thing, but to capture moments like this, just the way the tail aligns, them going down, the colors, the grass, trust me, and shoot, like taking pictures of cheetah cubs in long grass, I'm sure you know how, like, how
Yeah.
frustrating that can be. You feel like you've got the image, and the next thing you know, like your focus was on like one strain of grass, and like
Yeah.
um, this image is of, actually, I think no one, I think people would struggle to identify this male lion. But the craziest part is he was probably one of the most prominent, and it was Scarface. Um, the other eye was actually, he has a prominent scar, but I think a piece of grass or a leaf was covering it. So I thought about taking an artistic approach to it. Um, I don't think even when I posted this image, I said it was Scar. I'm pretty sure I didn't. But it just goes to show, like, there's more to an animal than just whatever little describes them. um, like a significant scar or something like that. I think people focus too much on that, and forget about the rest of who he is.
Yeah.
So that was my approach to this image, and the edit that I did. Now I'll just quickly move on to atmosphere, which is, I think, one of the most important parts of why I edit my images the way that I do. I feel like there are a lot of times we go to Mara, and we take images, and the image can turn out great, but it'll never truly represent the feeling that you had when you were there, because there's just something in the air, there's something like in the sky, the light, it's just almost impossible to capture all of it. So I feel like through editing, I've managed to add something to my images, and that's the context I've tried to create with all my art pieces. um, so here, for example, I'm not sure about the male lion's name. I'm sure somebody in the Big Cats of Masai Mara group on Facebook is going to point something out to me. Uh, but yeah, this atmosphere, you can feel the wind, you can feel the air, like the colors, everything. This is adjusted ever so slightly, but that's what I aim to do. I try to play with shadow, light, um, a little bit of dehaze, clarity adjustments, bring out the softness of the mane, bring out the eyes as much as possible, and really focus on the subject itself. The best part about images like this is that, like, the context is up to you, right? You see this image and then you make your own story about it. That's what Masai Mara is. Masai Mara Reserve Wildlife, that's what it's about, creating your own stories and your own versions of stories about this particular animal. What is this lion thinking about? I don't know. Like, honestly, like, probably like sheep or something, but I don't know. But that's what makes it so magical, these portraits. It's like, what are you thinking about? So yeah. This is another one of my art pieces where I've edited, adjusted colors, added some atmosphere, um, with the sunlight going through the clouds. I think it's one of my favorite things I pointed out earlier in the webinar, that, like, sun rays, like, those light rays breaking through the overcast clouds, and just a spotlight on an animal. It's one of my favorite things in the world. So I think the sky is extremely important in Masai Mara. I'm yet to still take amazing pictures. Like, one day maybe. I know Parit. Parit is an amazing photographer. I'm sure all of you know him.
Yeah.
One of my biggest inspirations ever since I started taking photographs in Masai Mara. He'll speak about environmental shots like anything nowadays. He's obsessed about it. It's quite it's quite funny. But yeah, I'm a sucker for beautiful skies, and the colors, the purples, the oranges. Like, it's what I feel like um, add. I'm sorry, voice crack, adds to to the whole photograph is colors and the change in light. I think that's one of the most important factors for me. Um, this over here, I only took it earlier in December, um, early in December, last December, where it was an early morning. The colors in the back were purple. It was just, oh, it was a breathtaking morning. I think this male belongs to Topi Pride. Not too sure. With the 11 cubs or something. It's amazing. But he was surveying his land and walking towards us again, frontal shot, intensity in the eyes, the shadows, the mane is beautiful. The tail just wagging, just little things like paying attention to like a still image that represents movement. That's why it's so important for the tail to be there, and why I was very lucky for the shot to turn out half decent. Um, this is Silver Cat. Um, Again, play of light and shadows. I think everyone that's seen silver cats in the early mornings and the late evenings, but more specifically early mornings, it's very like the light is extremely low, super high ISOs, which is why this image is a bit grainy. Um, but again, play on light and shadows. Like it's they're very curious, very elusive, but at the same time very curious. Like I've seen some several sightings where I'm just like, wow, this is so contradictory to what everyone believes. But again, atmosphere through light and shadow.
Especially the cubs are very
um
curious.
oh wow, like I want to see
They,
cubs. I've
yeah,
never seen cubs, but like all the images I've seen, I'm just like, wow, I want to be there. This is Bahati, one of my favorite leopards, if not my favorite leopard in Masai Mara. Very strong features, very bold features. The eyes are just oof, brilliant. I actually before this, I heard about her through Harman HSH Photos, amazing photographer again. He claimed her to be favorite leopard. I was just like, wow, I know why now. Like the broad nose, the
yeah,
sharp nose, the bold eyes, like the coat she has, very beautiful. But again, atmosphere, like it was an early morning, the dew was out, trying to capture the darkness in the shadows. All of that's just, yeah, it makes the image. Um, this little part of it is called multiple stories, because I feel like an image with multiple subjects just has various stories to it. You can see on the left image is one of my favorite images I've taken of like lionesses, and you can see all three of them are looking in different directions. If you look at the pupils specifically, they're all looking in different directions. And once again, coming back to the whole idea of like, what are they thinking about? What are they looking at? Like, is it? That's why there's a lot of shots that people already tell the story with the much larger frame. But I've cropped it down to this because it's up to the viewers. It's up to whoever's viewing this image to decide and make up their own things in their head about what they're looking at. Um, Fantastic. Even the elephants on the right, same thing. They're moving together in the same direction, but they do their own things. They're there together, living their own lives and have their own thoughts, and just I don't know, the aesthetic of like the trunk coming out like that. It's one of my favorite images I've ever taken of elephants. Um, this is also a very special shot to me because I've always wanted something like this with elephants coming towards us, but all of them looking in the same direction. The spacing between for composition, this is like I don't think you can ask for anymore. When you have like perfectly spaced animals together, like wow, it's yeah.
yeah.
And what I did is I just did high exposure, reduce the shadows in post processing, um, and it turned out to be one of my favorite images of an elephant again. So those two, I think there are two more that I'll show you further on. Um, this is also, I think everyone's seen this, but struggles to take a shot that really captivates them or represents like the behavior. Usually I avoid zebras in general because it's just like I don't know, like I'm more captivated by lions and leopards. If there's an opportunity, I'm off. But maybe I need to change things up. Maybe a few more trips to somewhere else could do that. Uh, but usually when we drive past zebras, they all just scatter. Like,
Yeah.
right, they just like stop doing what they're doing, and usually they even stop this. But these two zebras just stayed, and we were like maybe 20 meters away from them, and they were like totally fine being the way they were, completely unbothered by like us. So I just thought, okay, let me take a shot, and it turned out really well because the background was blown out because it was midday, the sun was out, but there was a cloud that was shadowing the subject. So it was really hard to take a good photograph of it, which is why, like in post processing, I blew out the back, and I just embraced it. And just by doing that, added some atmosphere, like I told you before. Uh, okay, so these are the Rosetta brothers, I believe, two cheetah brothers. How males usually work, male cheetahs usually work, is that they when they grow up, they try to hunt in pairs, which is Tanabora, like that. That's like the correlation. It's really interesting because usually they don't do that. They'll find pairs, the males especially, and they'll just work for the rest of their lives like that. Once again, multiple stories. One of them's looking one direction, another's looking the other direction. But at the end of the day, like 5 minutes later, they both walked in the same towards the same place. Um, so yeah, like thinking, like what does the subject make you think about? What do you think the subject is thinking about? I think is one of the most important parts of an image. um, this one is also one of my favorite elephant shots I've taken. It's just the composition of the bouquet with the elephant in the foreground just being a bit darker, and then the focus on the back with the golden light hitting her, sorry. And the way that the tusk on the left and the tusk on the right just represent an elephant. Uh, these are the images that, like, when you have a bouquet opportunity, you take it because you know it's always going to turn out to be a half decent image. Uh, Now, power and intensity, like I feel like are some of the most crucial aspects of like creating a captivating image, right? Power, intensity. Like when something looks bothered, when something looks like they're on a mission, when it's a very intense emotion on their face, you can't help but stop and wonder. So this, for example, was Ulupi. This image, I think a lot of people loved because he's a very rare leopard to sight, a very rare male leopard to sight in Mara, from what I'm told. It was completely unexpected. I just remember John said, "There's a leopard." I'm not quite sure of his name. I'm not quite sure who he is, but he's there. He's up there. He's killed a quite a large warthog, and he's up on a tree. So we decided, okay. I went there, and when I saw him, I was blown away because his head is massive. And one animal that I'm obsessed with is a jaguar. I'm yet to see one in person. Hopefully, I'll go Pantanal, something like that, very soon. Uh, but that's why I've loved male leopards because the broad heads, closest thing to jaguars I can get in Kenya. But he was even bigger than the male leopards I've seen.
Yeah, I think
Just
he's one of
incredible.
he is the biggest male in Mara now.
Yeah, yeah. Now for sure. Like I don't think I've seen any bigger. You can see his big belly as well. He clearly eats a lot. So it was quite interesting, and he was always aware of the presence of the cars around us. Like we weren't that close,
Yeah,
but he was. I think because he's a rare leopard to find, he's not very like familiar with like
very
vehicles and
shy.
stuff. He's not very comfortable, very shy, exactly. So any movement, any slight adjustment anyone made, he would just like turn his head and stare them down. And it made for some amazing images, but there was some moments where it just like he's coming straight down for us. Like in this particular shot,
Yeah.
I thought he was gonna come down and just walk towards us, and I was just like, in what a part of me was just like, yes, please do that, but part of me was also like, please don't. Um, Power intensity. Once again, you can see it in the eyes. This elephant. This is one of the first times I tried to like mess around with editing and try to add a lot more atmosphere, darkness, and make the elephant look as powerful as possible. Um, but I think the elephant did most of the work in this image. Um, Again, portraits. portraits of lions just looking straight back at you. The image on the right of the female lioness, she had two cubs with her. This was again on my first trip in 2020 to Mara with like a proper camera and like with the intent to take photographs. On the first evening, actually, we drove close to her, which we probably shouldn't have because we didn't realize she had two cubs with her. As soon as we got like about maybe 15 meters away, 20 meters away, her eyes were like wide open, right? She did not like us being there. So we thought, okay, we'll be here for like one more minute and then we'll leave because it was such a cute sighting. The two cubs were just playing with each other. Um, but I'm pretty sure like about 10, 15 seconds before we decided to leave, she did a warning charge at us. And I was, I've never experienced something in my life like that where I felt so defenseless, even though we were sitting in a car, so defenseless. But I feel like this is the eyes you were giving us. I'm pretty sure like whatever people would think about it is what would happen right after taking this image is exactly what happened. Even on the left is of the same line that I showed you in the very first image, same setting, where he was traveling through the long grass, trying to capture the focus. So all I tried to do is just focus on the eyes, keep pressing the AF on button and hoping that we'd get the shot, high shutter speed, everything. Um, and yeah, as we were driving by him, he gave us his gaze. We were actually moving, so I'm surprised that the shot was sharp, but it's probably because of the high shutter speed. But again, intensity in the eyes, it's very powerful. It's a powerful thing when animals look straight at you. This image I'm quite bummed out about because it's a bit slightly too cropped in. The disadvantage of having a zoom lens, a telephoto lens. But just this was a lioness yawning, actually. But obviously the moment that I chose to pick out was when her mouth was slightly open. It's not an accurate representation of what she was actually feeling, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, it's a brilliant image. Even the way the composition with the legs crossing each other and the tails just like overlapping almost. It's one of my favorite images. I just wish I was zoomed out slightly more. So I always recommend like just if you could zoom out, please zoom out. Like it's just one of those things. Zoom out, do the cropping later, and also find a way to buy yourself a camera that has pixel density of like a billion. Um, this is bull elephants. I can't get enough of them. They're just incredible creatures. You know how we speak about like T-Rexes and the Jurassic era, and if we could freeze time and just look at that's what elephants are to me. Every single time I see an elephant, I'm just like, excuse me, like we live on the same planet with them. Like I'm literally 10 meters away from them. Like what is happening? Um, I have a funny name for them. I call them land whales. But yeah, bull elephants are they're just majestic creatures. Once again, through post processing, dim down the shadows, increase the exposure on the right side. Just make sure that the direction of light makes sense. I think that's the easiest way to post process light and shadows is just make sure the lighting makes sense.
Yeah.
I think in this image I was some time ago, but every image that I edit, like I learn how to play with light and yeah, just pay attention to that stuff. Now, peace. Peace is also one of the most captivating aspects of wildlife. Just to see, this is a baby giraffe that had just been born, literally out of the womb, and this was like maybe 2 minutes or 3 minutes. It was in tall grass, so we couldn't see it for a while. But it just decided to get up while it was learning how to stand, and I know the image speaks for itself. It's probably taking its first few deep breaths and feeling the air of Mara, like that crystal clear air. Um, Again, lions are notorious for sleeping throughout the day, but that doesn't mean that you can't get a beautiful shot from them because the emotion is just they're at peace, they're calm. I actually flipped the image on the right. It was the other way for composition purposes. I just flipped it around. It was two male lions cuddling with each other. It's crazy how like they can be so intense one moment and the next they're just like the cutest things ever. Um, Over here, this is one of my favorite shots as well. So this was a very early morning, and these lionesses were um, just I don't know what they were doing. I think they were just walking around their territory with no specific purpose. I think they may have eaten like a day before, so they weren't really hungry. Uh, but lionesses are like one thing you can always learn. This is through studying animal behavior by just spending time with them. Is you learn these little things where if they wake up from a nap, they get up and they go to each other and bump heads. So in anticipation, I set up the shot for that. This just comes with experience, really. So it's a very all you need sometimes in the morning is just a little head bump, like and you're good, you're set, you're ready for the day.
Yeah.
This one again, a lion waking up in the evening, actually ready to do its patrolling and surveying of his territory. A quick yawn, just peaceful, right? Like there's no intention of like, okay, we need to survive. It's just a normal cat just waking up, and it can make some of the most captivating and emotional images, just to know that wildlife is at peace. Um, this is that same sighting that we had for 9 hours, where we waited 9 hours for Luluka to come down from the tree. As you can see, she literally slept on every single branch there is. It's mate, don't even get me started. Like I can talk about this for 2 hours. That one sighting. Um, but yeah, just the way the tail and the sausage tree, just everything just came together perfectly. The dark, gloomy skies in the background. This tree specifically, sausage trees. They're such beautiful trees to shoot leopards
Yeah.
on. I think it's just yeah. This one is an elephant, probably like a subadult or something. Um, Very playful, right? Like it's interesting to see how like newborn, like baby elephants are extremely energetic and playful and clumsy, and then as they grow older, they just become so lethargic. Um, so this is that sweet spot in between where they're a bit curious, a bit clumsy, just trying to have some fun. Peaceful image, just animals doing their own thing, tells its own story. Another version of this composition, again playing with light and shadow. I don't have much to say about this image. I think this is an accurate representation of how we feel when we're with these animals, just at peace. Once again, it's just slow heartbeats. This leopard, I'm not quite sure what its name is, but I believe it's Caboso's cub. I'm not sure if you know, but
The
I
latest.
think the latest. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not entirely sure though. We never really got an ID because we were the only people over there, and John was a bit uncertain. But it's incredible to see how leopards are and how relaxed they are when it's just one car or two cars. As
Yeah.
soon as like 3 4 cars come in, they just want to be gone. Like to get a shot of a leopard and Mara on like just flat ground, how hard that is. It just
Yes.
barely happens for her to be just relaxing like that. But again, peaceful, just like very relaxed and calming images. Uh,
Especially when
that's the
it's
energy it
male
translates.
and cub.
Yeah, especially.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so this I just wanted to because I've been talking about Mara so much. A few friends of mine in Uganda invited me over to Mount Gahinga National Park. Got to spend some time with gorillas, and I think that like it's the same energy with elephants, where like the older gorillas aren't that they're quite lethargic. They don't do much, but the babies are curious as ever. The image on the left is one of my favorite images. Again, I have this up on my wall where what looks to be a toothpick in its mouth that it's created on its own. Um, we're so close. Like we're like shared characteristics between humans and gorillas and apes and chimps, like it's so fascinating to see something so similar to us and how they're living in the wild. Uh, yeah, quite incredible. Very peaceful animals. I think that like my heart was racing initially, but the longer that we stayed there, it just slowed down even slower than what I would feel like in my bedroom. Like incredible animals. So this is my last segment that I'm going to touch on, which is the rawest form of nature. My personal favorite, because just like wow, when you see this stuff in person, it changes your life because you realize that animals exist to survive, right? That's their primary purpose, to
Yes.
survive. And it's always mutual respect between the predator and the prey. They understand why the lion is doing so, and the lion respects the prey that they eat and capture because it's just a form of sustenance. But they make for some incredible and powerful images because blood in in the context of humans is always a sensitive topic, but with wildlife, we get to be in touch with these feelings, uh, and be, I guess, a little less emotional. It hits a little less close to home, which is why blood for human beings, it's never a good thing, but in this context, it's very powerful. So this is the image I was talking about on my very first trip on the second day, my first morning, where the Tanabora had hunted a zebra, and I was just like, whoa, like cheetahs can hunt zebras? Like, aren't they too big? But these boys at the time, they could do anything. Um, and I think the reason why they get such bloody faces is because of their smaller mouths. So what they do is they really insert their head into the carcass of the animal. Um, which is why you always get such bloody cheetah shots. It's quite interesting, but I think it's just the composition of this. Like this is one of those images where I had to do very minimal work. Right? It was just the sighting itself. It's what the
Yeah.
animal had to offer. The way that the whiskers are almost as if it's a mustache, and the blood dripping down the chin and the ears, it almost looks like a pharaoh. The if you go search up a pharaoh in Egypt, very very similar um, features. This is one of those images where like I'm never gonna forget this sighting, and it's so powerful, and it's so powerful to a lot of people. In fact, it's one of the images that made a name for me on social media. So um, this one is gonna live with me for a time. This is actually in the same sighting. So that's the zebra that you saw, the zebra that I'm talking about. It was a younger zebra, bloody face. This is from the opposite, from the front side. You can see that not the entire face was bloody, it was just one of the sides. Raw form, those claws, the blood, the intensity of probably what the cheetahs felt like. It's and the image on the right, it's like, it's calming down while it's eating something it's just killed. Like, think about that in the context of a human. Like, we would call that person psychotic if we were to like see somebody kill somebody and then just be so relaxed and calm about it. That's what wildlife does. It shows you such a different perspective, but survival, it's crazy. It's a whole different world in Masai Mara. Like, I feel like everyone needs to witness stuff like this. Um, Again, this was a male lion with a topi. Um, Incredible sighting where actually the full image, I wish I had it on me, but I didn't. But this head was actually already ripped off, and it was carrying it. It's just the way that the tongue is coming out of the mouth, the look in the eyes, the horn brushing against the soft fur, the soft mane. One of those sightings that were like very close by. The reason why it's cropped so much is because we were so close to it. The line just kept on bringing the topi like closer and closer to us, and I was just like, I was terrified. But at the same time, I remembered that, like, listen, lions kill for one purpose and one purpose only, and that's to eat. Simple as that. So as long as it has meat in its mouth, you're good, I reckon. Um, the right image over here, the way the tongues are playing, that's actually, these lines are from the Black Rock Pride, one of the most pretty lines I've seen. But it was so fascinating to see them in such a gross environment. But it's part of their life, right? Like, just dirt, filth, blood. flies, like they're okay with it because that's what they need to do. A very peaceful image in a very intense sighting. Um, quite amazing. Coming to a close here. On the right here, one of the Tanabora males. You can see they have small faces, so just putting it inside of a carcass, it's you always get a fascinating image. Wet red colors on a cheetah. It's amazing. And the left over here is a subadult male lion in the early morning. This I took a shot maybe last month, early last month. I don't have the full context of the image here. I never managed to get a decent shot because of the light. But there were hyenas, and the hyenas were so close to the lion. He just didn't care. He was just, I'm gonna eat. I'm gonna eat now. Don't bother me. You can have the scraps. Like that understanding, that mutual like understanding of it. Like maybe they may not be like friends, they're probably foes, but at the same time there's this like understanding that they have, which is, listen, we did the work, we killed the wildebeest, I'm going to eat this stuff, don't bother me, you can have the scraps. Like, and also eyes, again, so important. The eyes are everything for me. You can take a picture of a lion eating something and be like, oh, that's pretty cool, but if you can capture the eyes, it really shows the emotion and intensity of the subject when they're doing what they're doing. So always say that if you can get an image, if you get an image with eyes in it, just do it. Frontal shots, everything, just do it. But yeah, so this is that ulupi, the male leopard that we saw, insanely full belly. I think I'm never gonna forget this sighting. That's what Masai Mara and that's what wildlife does to you. Is every day is a new day, and you can never expect something from that day. You just have to let it happen. Um, and this is a gift that keeps on giving. I keep on going through these images, and I find a cooler image every single time. Intensity in the eyes, once again, play with colors. It's very easy to take pictures of leopards on a tree and then just discard them later because you're just like, the lighting wasn't right, the background's too bright. Uh, just just like post process, if you have an image that doesn't quite work, find a way to make it work. And don't be bothered about this thing where like it's not an accurate representation of wildlife, because it definitely still is. To have an image that's captivating, even by post processing, you still need to have a good raw photo.
Yeah.
And which is why every single time I see any negative comments about like, oh, this is too over edited, or like this is not an accurate representation of wildlife, like why are you posting this image? And I'm just like, it's still a real shot, it's still a real animal. It's This is our representation, artists on Instagram. This is all our representation of wildlife. And at the end of the day, like if you can get a leopard with a face like that, I don't think anyone minds what you've done with the image. And yeah, a lot of people, I just noticed, a lot of people think this leopard's pregnant, but I don't know, maybe. I mean, maybe. But yeah, but that's about it for the images I have to share, and the images I have to talk about. Um, I'm just happy to share my passion about wildlife. I know that I haven't touched too much about photography and tips about photography, but that's the stuff that you can learn. That's the stuff that like is the easiest part. How to use a camera, how to like operate a camera and take shots, high shutter speeds, all of that. You guys can learn that. But composition matters to you and only you. So when you're taking a photo, take a photo of what you're most captivated by and share it, because I know that this is a very saturated market, wildlife photography. There are a billion photos of the same animals over and over again. Sure, different circumstances, different environments, but at the end of the day, if you are captivated by your own image, I'm sure you're going to find at least one person that is too, one other person that is too. So yeah, that's about it.
That's great.
Sweet. So yeah, that's my journey in photography and like all my images. So
I
if
should
anyone
say
has any questions about,
excellent,
yeah,
excellent images and
thank you so
beautiful
much.
narration. You
Sweet.
really uh, like took us to Mara in each of your photographs by narrating the story behind each photos.
Sweet. That's exactly
Yeah.
what I hope for.
So, what is your ultimate mission behind
My
your
ultimate
photography?
mission.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised I didn't touch upon this earlier, but it's to create a bond between wildlife and humans. That's the primary focus of it. If you can convince somebody that this animal is worth living, this animal is worth seeing, this animal is worth protecting through pictures, why not? My connection to wildlife isn't necessarily photography. My connection to wildlife is the way how it makes me feel, right? Just being out in the wild with these gorgeous animals that you're constantly questioning yourself, like, what are they doing existing? It's ridiculous. Like, if you were to be in an apartment like me and that line comes out to life, right? Like, you'd be like, what is going on? Like, why is there a lion in my room? It's the same way you go to these reserves and you're just like, what is this amazing creature doing on my planet that I see once a year or maybe once in a lifetime for some people?
Yeah.
Sometimes not even once. There are people that go their entire life without seeing a lion or a leopard or an elephant. It's insane.
That's true.
When you have the opportunity to, you should. And through my images and posting on Instagram and stuff, I'm just trying to get people to see why these incredible animals are, it's they're worth seeing, they're worth protecting. So that's my ultimate goal. Actually, photography isn't even where I want to go in terms of my career. It's just something that helps me be closer to animal and share my passion. um, I want to work in tourism because anything to help people open up their eyes and feel the way that I do and the way that you do about these amazing animals. So conservation wise, like I'm afraid I haven't done enough, uh, but it's something that I'm very passionate about, and I feel like a lot of people are doing some amazing work. Um, and that's going to be my next focus apart from the whole travel thing. My next focus is trying to work in conservation as much as possible, and with a growing follower base, hopefully that becomes easier to do as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's my goal.
What is that one animal that you would like to photograph again and again?
Again and again, I think a lot of people's answer is leopard hair. Like, I feel like that's the easiest one, because like any chance you get to photograph a leopard, people say yes, please. Because they're just gorgeous animals, very elusive, hard to spot, hard to find, hard to get them in good context. Um, easily leopards. Like, with lions, it becomes a bit repetitive, especially during the day, because we don't have night safaris in Mara. Early mornings and late evenings are the times where you can get those shots. But to spend time with the leopard, I told you, like, I spent 9 hours waiting for a leopard to go up and down a tree. Like, if something can make me that patient, right? Because I'm a very impatient person. Something can make me that patient. Like, it's worth everything. Which is why I give so much importance to the things that I'm passionate about. Because when you're passionate about something, the rest of the world doesn't matter. It's simple as that.
True.
In
Yeah.
that exact moment, like, you're willing to give your all for that one thing that you're so passionate about. It's a feeling that you can only understand if you feel it. You can't quite explain it. It's a very hard conversation to have. Yeah.
Uh, we have a message from Kushil Hirani. Fabulous
Hi.
photos, Aditya. Absolutely love your style. Are there
Thank
instances where you are forced to edit your photos in a totally different style? Example, due to lighting, rain, sunset, sunrise.
Oh, 100%. There are times where I totally forget to change the settings. For example, from the previous like sighting where it was overcast. That's what Marmara is about, right? Like it's
Yeah.
like 300 different types of lighting in the space of 1 hour, and sometimes you just forget because you're so concentrated on what's happening. There are a lot of shots where I feel like super bummed out after I preview them on my camera, and I'm just like, oh man. And then like 15 minutes later, I'm just like, computers are a pretty powerful tool. I can probably revive this image. And I usually do. Like I think I've had some of my shots have been um in camera settings that I don't think were the perfect setting, right? But that's the power of post processing, and that's the power of like learning how to use these tools. So yeah, any opportunity you can to like learn how to use software, please do, because it's gonna save you a world of pain and like disappointment. It clearly did for me.
Yeah. Alisa Takar, I loved listening to every minute of this. Such an inspiration. I love your distinct style of editing. What are a few of your go-tos on Lightroom?
Go choose on Lightroom. Hi Alyssa, how are you? Um, so my go-tos on Lightroom. Okay, one very powerful tool is the dehaze tool, because it's one of the easiest ways to add or emphasize lighting. Um, Especially with nowadays, you have the Lightroom just introduced the feature of masking, where you can even use the dehaze tool to like an extent that I've never been able to like before. Um, yeah, it's a dehaze on the radial tools, right? Radial tools, gradient tools, just decrease that slider to the left, put that slider to the left, and maybe change up the color tones so that it looks more like it's the natural sunlighting. Because sometimes the shots that you take, you prioritize making sure the image is sharp, and then suddenly you've sacrificed the natural lighting that's there. You don't get that anymore. So if you feel like you need to add some lighting, you want to play around with it, I think radial tools mixed with dehaze are so important. But just remember not to overdo it. That's the most important part. Another tool that I really like is the brush tool. Simple as that. Use that brush tool for shadows. For example, on this leopard, um, any spots that are darker, right? Any spots where the lighting can't really shine on, just use that, decrease the exposure ever so slightly, decrease the shadows ever so slightly, decrease the highlights ever so slightly, and just paint. Paint, because it is still an accurate representation. You're just bringing the image to life. And I think by doing that also, because you're playing with light and shadow, it adds a lot of depth. So your images stand out, like it looks more three-dimensional. So yeah, the radial tool, the brush tool, dehaze, and shadow, highlights, and exposure. That's all an image needs. Thank you for that question.
Nili is asking, while waiting for Luluka for 9 hours, what were you doing?
Nilly, hi. This is some great friends here, great people, amazing photographers. Um, I took a couple of videos of me just like lying down. It's pretty much it. I was there in the same car as Andrew, so we had a couple of conversations, but even we got tired of each other at one point. I think there was one solid hour where we didn't say a single word. Instagram like connectivity over here, we weren't even getting any connectivity for those 9 hours. I'm pretty sure I couldn't even access Instagram. That's how. Oh, mate, Millie, stop it. You're just PTSD. For those 9 hours, it was one of the hardest like waits that I've ever had. But at the same time, like I'm very grateful for it because it disconnected me and from like reality almost. It disconnected me from like everything else except for this one goal, which is to see a leopard come down from a tree. And when you put your mind through things like that, like it really just shows you that sometimes nothing matters except for what you're literally doing at that moment in time. Like it's yeah, I was just lying down for about 5 6 hours just doing nothing. We went for a few pee breaks, came back, and it was just like, oh, every single time we went to go like take a pee or take a leak, we would come back and be like, no, we have to do this quickly just in case she comes down. Like then all this time would be wasted. No, no, I had to do that about 5 times and still no. Yeah.
Another one from Jessel Chandi. Hey mate, you're my second favorite wildlife photographer. What's your proudest photo to take?
Uh, Thanks, Jessel. um, my proudest photo to take. This is a really hard one because I don't necessarily feel proud after taking pictures. I just feel fascinated by the fact that I managed to capture it. But if I had to pick one, it would 100% be the cheetah, bloody cheetah photo, because it had nothing to do with me. It was one of those things where like I'm just proud that I was able to capture such a unique moment that presented itself to me. That's what makes me proud about it, is that like as a photographer you have one job, and that's especially when it's something like wildlife where 99% of it is candid shots, like where you have absolutely no control over it.
Yeah.
To be able to capture the moment at the right time, the right angle, like that's all that matters sometimes. It doesn't even have to be how good of a photographer you are, but definitely that's one of those images that just it's lived with me and carried my passion forward. Thanks, Shasta.
Another question from Dhir Jakaria. Where do you see yourself in 5 years as a photographer?
Another photographer. Hi there, another very talented photographer. Um, 5 years, mate. If I had any clue what would happen to me in 5 years, like I would be so happy. I wish I could see so far into the future. Honestly, like if a year ago, if you asked me what I'd be doing a year from then, to be on a seminar that's hosted by such a talented photographer and that do pieces on other talented photographers, I would have just been like, no, get out of here. But if I had a couple of aims, I'd love to have done a lot more work in wildlife conservation and photography for wildlife conservation specifically. If my images the can help better the situation with wildlife, uh, that would be a dream come true for me. If my images are that powerful, it has that effect. That's all I want. So in 5 years, hopefully, that's the feeling I'll have.
That's
Thanks,
great.
dear.
So yeah, that's all the questions we got.
Sweet. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Aditya. Wonderful session,
Thanks, Armis.
and hopefully soon
Love
we'll
it.
come back with another session. Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect.
Okay.
Sweet. Hopefully,
All the
hopefully.
best.
Thank
All
you
the best for
so much
you.
for having me.
You're welcome.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye bye bye.
Yeah. So that was Aditya, amazing photographer and amazing storyteller. I have to say that. So that's the end of today's session. We'll be back with another wonderful session on. We have a session on 17th with another great photographer. So I'll be posting it soon on our social media. Till then, take care. Bye.